Hey, welcome back to the Radical Care for Christian Counselors podcast. My name is Bethany Boring, and yes, you're in the right place. Okay, so maybe this is your first time and you're wondering, am I in the right place? And if it's not your first time, you've already heard this. So just to reassure you that you are in the right place, I mean, who wouldn't want to stay here right now? I mean, come on. With an introduction like that, I mean, you should be in the right place. Anyway, this podcast is really for Christian counselors, pastoral care leaders, really anyone in the role of caring well for others. That also includes parents and coaches and teachers and so many different other professions. But here's something that puts this podcast apart. We focus a lot with groups and we focus a lot with going beneath the surface. You'll hear a lot of things on this podcast that are authentic and real. It challenges you. And we also do resources in a way that I want you to leave feeling equipped and ready to apply this to your own life before even trying to walk with others in it. I believe that every Christian counselor, mental health professional, pastoral care leader should be in a group with caring people who truly see them for who they are and where they can be seen and soothed and safe and secure and be able to offer that same atmosphere, that same connection to other people, whether it's a client or whether it's a peer-to-peer support. That's what Step Out and Thrive is for, and that is exactly what we do here on the Radical Care for Christian Counselors podcast. If you haven't been tuning in prior, we are right in the middle of our Cognitive Distortions series, which is all about taking every thought captive, which is an amazing verse, but a lot of times people are like, how do I do that? And a lot of times we give that to God. We ask God to really help us process everything that is going through our mind and through our heart and through our emotions. We want Him to speak into that. So a lot of that's a receiving posture. But in counseling and mental health, there's always tools and resources that we can use too. And it's a great help. And so that's what these cognitive distortions are. It's a way for us to be aware of some stinking thinking that might be going on in our brain. You also see below that I have the Cognitive Distortions PDF that you can grab. Would love to have you follow along with that. And last but not least, we have the Rosebud link down below, which basically what Rosebud is a journaling platform. You do have to pay for it, but I don't recommend anything that I don't personally use. I personally use Rosebud every single day, at least during the week. What I do is I transfer a lot of my journaling notes into there, and it can track a lot of my mental health. It can track goals that I'm trying to process through. It can track cognitive distortions. So it's a great tool that I've used, and to me, it's been well worth that. So anyway, that's what that is. So if you want to check that out, the link's down below if you want to check that. And I think I get like a little bit of a percent off of my annual fee. So if you'd like to do that, you can help me out that way, but don't feel like you have to. It's just a great resource that I wanted to throw out there. So today we are getting into a great cognitive distortion. Last time we were talking about catastrophizing, and today we're going to talk about emotional assuming, which is basically when you assume that your emotions are correct and you just move past that. You make the whole situation about that emotion that presents itself as truth. Now, a lot of people ask me about emotions all the time because they know me well and they know if they're going to go into a session or a group with me, you know you're going to talk about emotions. So, Bethany, you said to follow and pay attention to our emotions. And now you're saying, don't follow it. What's the deal here? There's a difference. There really is. There's a difference between paying attention to what emotions are present, but also paying attention to the reality and the truth that's in the sphere as well. This is a great distinction to have and a great discussion to have because we can be feeling one way about a circumstance, but we might not know the whole circumstance. We might not hold the whole truth. We might be believing in something that's not true. And we don't know that until we put our curiosity caps on. And that requires accepting the emotion, but also becoming curious about what's really going on around us. A great example would be a conversation that I had with a friend. This is years ago, and we can laugh about it now. At the time, we couldn't, but we can laugh about it now. And she was convinced at that time that her boyfriend was cheating on her. I mean, 1000%. I mean, she was just coming to me distraught. He was sneaking out at different times. They were in college together. They were sneaking out. He was sneaking out at different times. He was canceling some plans on her. He was working so much at the place that he was working on off campus. His grades were slipping a little bit. She was just concerned, and she would ask him about it, and he said, "Don't worry about it. I'm fine. I'm good." Well, she was worrying about it. And she was just, I mean, bringing all these emotions to me. And she's like, I'm done. He's going to break up with me. He's found somebody else. He's spending time with somebody else. I mean, she was just distraught, in tears, shaking. She was already through. So some of this is catastrophizing or assuming, but her emotions, I mean, these can also overlap, but her emotion was way more than what was actually going on. She had already believed in it so far that the emotions were following suit. She didn't pay attention to what else was going around it. So a couple days later, when they were at the park together and he proposed with a ring that he had to work overtime for and then go find and get size because it was actually one of her parents' rings. So it was a long story of how they went ahead and did this. But because of all of that, she was completely surprised. And that excused why he was doing all those things. So she had to work on that. And we always go back to that because we're still friends to this day. And we always make fun of that because she spent hours with me instead of taking this up with him and talking with him about it. That's a great example of it. A more serious example would be for me, journey that I took, goodness, probably almost a year ago now. As many of y'all know, I'm on this journey of charge syndrome and so many things that go on, but also vision loss and hearing loss. And I've gradually been losing some of my vision and my hearing over the last couple of years, even as I've gotten older. And I reached a point about a year ago where I was just like, something's got to give. Like, I am not going to be able to push through this. And I was so angry at God. You guys see where we just took a shift to a more deeper level? So angry at God that I literally just got stuck in that place and almost fear set in because I was so angry. I was fearful to even go before him and talk about this and really wrestle through this. And it didn't make any sense because I kept on hitting against that wall time and time and time and time again. So I was invited out to a retreat. And on that retreat, I knew before that plane even landed that I needed to deal with my anger. And although it was just, in my opinion, with everything that was going on, it wasn't the only thing happening, although it felt like it was the only thing happening at that moment. So I literally could catch myself in this cognitive distortion, but I could not get out for the life of me. One thing that one of my friends did, and they said, Bethany, I want you to go out into the woods here and take up some rocks and throw it and get angry and get mad. Give yourself permission to do that. I remember thinking, no, almost even catastrophizing what could happen. It might be too much if I pour in what's underneath the surface. I might not be able to make it through it. And what's anger going to do anyway? Like, it wouldn't prove anything. So many excuses went through my head. But I also knew like I couldn't go back without trying something different. So I made it through the woods and I picked up some rocks on the way there. I remember holding them going, there's no way I can throw this. There is no way I can throw this at God. I made it to the edge and there was like a kind of like a valley that went deep down. And I remember just standing there for the longest time, emotionless, with a rock in my hand, and I literally could not throw it. And I remember watching it hit the ground as I dropped it and just almost in defeat. Like I couldn't get angry. I literally could not get angry at that moment. And then I felt God saying, Bethany, it's okay. You can get angry. I'm not going to leave you. And he brought back some of the memories that I had to walk through the last year or two. Looking at my kids' homework and not being able to see it. Not being able to hear things that I really thought I should deserve to hear. Giving the car keys over to my 16-year-old, even though he's old enough to drive, but just to take me places because I didn't feel safe driving. When these memories started coming up, I started feeling the anger again. And I just let it come. And it took some time, but I let it come. Eventually, I bent down and I picked up the rock, and I remember looking at it and took a deep breath, and I just let it fly. And it felt so good. I did it again. I think I had like 6 rocks. By the time I got to the 4th, it left my hand, and I just collapsed to the ground in tears. Because underneath that anger, there was a lot of sadness that I couldn't even connect with. Because I wouldn't allow myself to express the anger that I was feeling. I didn't feel safe to do that. Then I also got to experience God love me because he didn't leave me in that moment. He wasn't hurt by the rocks that were flying. He wasn't laughing it off either. He wasn't shaming me. He was right there with me, catching my tears, walking with me, not fixing, but with. It was a powerful transformational moment. So transformational, I actually brought one of the rocks back with me from that retreat, and it sits on my dresser today. That's a more deeper example of how emotions can really help us be stuck. And we can get stuck in that. At the same time, there's also a way that we need to label and pay attention to how emotions feel in our bodies to help validate what we're feeling, but also be able to look around what's happening. Great tool that I've used, and many of you all know about it if you've been part of the Step Out and Thrive group for any length of time. You know that we talked about check-in and how powerful that is. I think I did a check-in series not too long ago, so you can go check that out. But basically, a great resource for this is to have somebody that you can check in with and use emotion words. If you have to say it feels like, it's not an emotion. I feel sad. I feel angry. I feel happy, whatever. And how does that feel like in your body? So you can label that. And it's not easily done. It takes practice. We don't become amazing basketball players overnight. We don't become amazing basketball players by ourselves. It takes others and it takes practice. We're going to drop the ball a lot of times. We're going to skin our knee when we hit the floor. But practice helps us in game time. All this to say, find somebody to check in with your emotions. Also, make sure that they can just be with you in the middle of it. You might need a hug. You might need stories or advice from them, and you can ask for that. You might just need prayer. You might just need to sit with them and God. Whatever that looks like, you can ask for that. And if you're more curious about this, join our tip group. We get to practice this all the time, and it's amazing, amazing process. So if it's open when you're listening, and if you're watching now, I believe our next tip community group is open. It's a 6-month journey weekly with people who love you and care for you and can be with you, and you get to practice. You get to practice in amazing ways. So if you're looking for a group, come on, check us out. And if you're watching this later, you can check out the BethanyBoring.com or StepOutandThrive.com websites and see when the next group is launching. Or invite me out to your church and we can talk there. I love to do that too. I love to travel. I love to speak. I love to do these workshops with you. I hope you're leaving with 2 things. One, know that cognitive distortions are so easy. so easy to fall into, whether it's a funny one that you can look back at later and laugh, or maybe a more serious one where you get to see God come through in amazing ways. Emotions are powerful. Emotions are valid. At the same time, they don't get the permission to control us. They can help us rationalize how we're feeling inside, but we can also pay attention to what's happening outside and also use other people to practice what's going on and give us a way to express our emotions and to be able to see what's underneath the surface. And we can also go to God and all of this as well. I hope this was helpful. I would love to hear if you struggle with the same cognitive distortion and letting emotions control you. Again, look forward to seeing you guys next week. Dare to do more than just survive, step out and thrive. See you guys later.